I always believed that no matter how twisted my family could be, they would never cross a line in front of my children. I was wrong. Terrifyingly wrong. One moment, I was placing the roasted chicken in the center of the table, reminding my kids Noah and Lily to sit nicely. The next, I was on the floor, choking on the metallic taste of blood as my father's polished shoe slammed into my ribs. "You're nothing, Sophia. Nothing." His voice didn't just echo through the dining room. It shattered something inside me. Noah froze mid-step, still clutching his toy spaceship. Lily backed into her chair, trembling so hard it scraped against the floor. My mother looked away. My sister Emma smirked. And as my father towered over me, ready for another blow, I felt something ignite. Not fear, clarity. That was the moment everything changed. The moment I stopped being their victim. PHN 1. The dinner before the storm is approximately equal to 450 words. Ingwe ketu ne in a2 drama. Neo twai truktiep. Dinner was supposed to be simple. Roasted chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans, nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. Just a quiet night where I pretended my family wasn't slowly suffocating me. I should have known better. The tension started the moment my parents stepped through the doorway. My father didn't even say hello. He glanced around my living room like a building inspector searching for violations. "Still living modestly, I see," he muttered. I forced a smile. "Hi, Dad. Nice to see you too." Mom brushed past me with a sigh so heavy you'd think she was entering a prison, not her daughter's house. And Emma, my sister, followed behind them, her heels clicking like a metronome of judgment. She took one look at my table setting and smirked. "Paper napkins, Sophia? Seriously?" "They're decorative," I said. "They're cheap," she corrected. I swallowed the irritation rising in my throat. Tonight was supposed to be peaceful. My therapist said I needed to observe my family dynamics without reacting. Well, she had no idea who my family actually was. Noah ran into the dining room before I could reply, holding his new toy spaceship above his head. "Mom, look! I learned how to make it spin!" Emma rolled her eyes so hard I could practically hear it. "God, Sophia, that toy looks expensive. Aren't you always complaining about money? Maybe don't spoil them." I stiffened. "He earned it. He worked hard this month." Dad scoffed from behind her. "Children don't earn anything. They do what they're told. That's the problem with you let them run wild." I clenched my jaw. "They're kids, Dad. They're fine." But he didn't let it go. "It's the mother's job to make sure they behave. Clearly, you still don't know how to do that." Mom chimed in softly, almost rehearsed. "She tries, Gerald. She's just always been difficult." Difficult. That word again. I set the bowl of potatoes down a little harder than I intended. Before the tension broke, Lily entered quietly and sat at the table. She whispered, "Hi, Grandpa." Dad didn't respond. Instead, he stared straight at me. "You know why we're here tonight, don't you, Sophia?" My stomach tightened. "You said it was just dinner." Emma's voice sliced in. "Mom said you've been making decisions behind the family's back, spending money irresponsibly, ignoring advice, being selfish." I stared at her, unable to hide my disbelief. "Selfish? Because I bought my son a toy?" Dad slammed his palm on the table, making Lily flinch. "Because you don't listen. Because you never have. And it's time someone corrected that." I could feel the storm forming quiet, heavy, inevitable. Every instinct in me screamed to protect my kids. But I also knew something else. What was about to happen wasn't about a toy, or dinner, or responsibility. It was about control, about power, about the unspoken rule they believed in. Sophia doesn't get to stand up. Sophia doesn't get to have a voice. Not anymore, I thought. Not tonight. The shift was subtle at first, like the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. Dad poured himself another glass of whiskey, even though he'd barely finished the first. Emma tapped her nails on the table, watching him like she was waiting for a show to begin. I placed the serving spoon down and took a breath. "Let's just eat, okay? The food's getting cold." Dad didn't lift his fork. Instead, he stared at Noah. "Put that toy away." Noah froze mid-spin, spaceship inches above the mashed potatoes. "But Grandpa," I said, "put it away." His voice boomed so suddenly that Lily jolted, nearly knocking over her cup. I stepped in quickly. "Dad, he's just excited." Dad snapped his head toward me. Did I ask for your explanation? The room went dead silent. Emma smirked behind her napkin, eyes glinting. There she goes again, always talking back. You never know when to stop, Sophia. Mom sighed dramatically. Sometimes I wonder why you insist on causing problems at every family gathering. Understår inte way, and he've, to do. Understår be dues to Bruce saying, coming in so very sapatted. I'm not causing anything, I said through my teeth. I'm just trying to have dinner. Dad leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing at me in a way I recognized too well, like he was calculating something, building a case in his head. Dinner? He repeated. You think this is about dinner? He stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. Noah reached for my hand under the table. Lily tucked her legs beneath her, shrinking. Dad pointed at me with 2 fingers like he was issuing an order. This is about the fact that you don't listen. You never have. I told you last month to give Emma the money she needed, and you ignored me. I clenched my fists. Because I didn't have it, and because it wasn't my responsibility. Emma scoffed. You're unbelievable. It was only $300. No, I corrected. It wasn't only anything. It was my grocery money. My bill money. Dad slammed his palm on the table. Don't talk back to me. I felt Noah flinch. Dad, I said carefully. Your voice is scaring the kids. Maybe they should be scared, he growled, stepping closer to my side of the table. Maybe then they'd learn some respect. Gerald, Mom whispered anxiously. Sit down. But Dad ignored her. He moved around the table with slow, deliberate steps, eyes fixed on me like a predator closing in on its prey. Su keng thong trong fong da quan. Lily whimpered softly. Mommy? I placed a hand on her shoulder. It's okay, sweetheart. Everything's fine. But everything was not fine. Dad stopped right beside me, towering over my chair. Stand up, he ordered. No, I said, my voice a quiet warning. We're not doing this. Not in front of my children. Emma laughed under her breath. Wow. She thinks she's brave now. Dad's jaw tightened. I said, stand up. My pulse hammered in my throat. I knew that tone. I'd known it since I was 15. It was the tone that meant a line had already been crossed, and there was no turning back. I didn't stand, and that was all it took. Dad grabbed the back of my chair and yanked it so hard that it scraped across the floor, the force jerking my body sideways. Dad, stop! Noah cried, jumping up. But Dad wasn't looking at him. His entire focus was on me. And before I could react, before I could shield myself, before my brain even processed the motion, he reared his leg back. His shadow fell over me. His voice, low and venomous, hit first. Maybe this will finally teach you. Then the kick landed. The first kick stole my breath before I even understood what was happening. A sharp explosion of pain ripped through my ribs, hot and electric, like something inside me cracked instantly. I hit the floor hard, my palms scraping against the tile, my knees slamming down a second later. For half a second, the world blurred. The room tilted. My ears rang. But the worst part wasn't the impact. It was the silence that followed. A horrifying, suffocating silence. I heard Noah gasp. I heard Lily's chair scrape backward. But no one else. Not my mother, not Emma, said a single word. Dad towered over me, breathing hard, the toe of his polished shoe inches from my face. You're nothing, Sophia. His voice dripped with venom. You've always been nothing. Actions of the Colin. I tasted blood warm, metallic, creeping down the back of my throat. Stop! Noah screamed, his small hands clenched into fists. Stop hurting my mom. Dad didn't even look at him. Instead, he grabbed a fistful of my hair and yanked upward. Pain shot through my scalp, tearing a cry from me before I could swallow it back. Emma folded her arms, leaning against the table like she was watching a mildly interesting documentary. God, Sophia. Why do you always make things so dramatic? I choked on a breath. Let me go, Dad snarled. You think you can disrespect me? In my presence? In front of my family? This is my home, I rasped. My kids. Your kids, he barked, tightening his grip. The way you're raising them is an embarrassment. Let her go. Noah's voice cracked as he ran toward us. Dad's hand shot out, not gently, not accidentally, and shoved him back. Noah stumbled into the edge of the table, dropping his spaceship. The small plastic toy skittered across the floor and hit Dad's foot. He looked down at it with disgust. Then he bent over, picked it up, and studied it as though it personally offended him. "This," he said, voice low, "is what you waste money on." "It's Noah's favorite," I whispered. The words trembled out of me more from fear for my son than from pain. Dad didn't care. He ripped the toy from its plastic fins and tossed it into the trash can so hard it clattered against the inside. Noah's face crumpled. "Grandpa, why?" Tears streamed down Lily's cheeks. She hid behind the chair, covering her ears. And something inside me cracked. Not a bone, this time, but something deeper, hotter. Sharpened by years of being told I had no voice, I forced myself to push up on shaking elbows, but Dad shoved me back down with his boot. The pressure dug into my ribs again, sending another wave of pain up my spine. "You stay down," he snarled. "You don't get up until I say so." "Dad, stop." Mom finally spoke, but her voice was so soft it barely carried. "She gets overwhelmed easily. You know how she is." How I am. Right. Difficult. Emotional. Problematic. Their favorite labels. Emma rolled her eyes. "She really shouldn't talk back to you. She knows better." I looked at them, my own family standing there watching their patriarch break me like I was a disobedient child. I spat blood on the floor, meeting Dad's eyes. "Get your foot off me." His nostrils flared. His voice dropped into that terrifying calm he used before hitting harder. "You don't give orders," he said. "You obey." Then, he kicked me again. Harder. Right in the same spot. A burst of white exploded in my vision. My ribs screamed. My lungs seized. I curled inward instinctively, gasping as tears sprang up unbidden. Noah let out a sound I'd never heard from him, a broken, wounded cry. "Mommy!" And in that moment, through the haze of agony, through the fog of betrayal, I saw his face. My son's face. Pure terror. My daughter huddled behind him, trembling, clutching his shirt. That image burned something into my mind so fiercely that even the pain faded beneath it. Because my children weren't just scared. They were watching. They were learning. They were deciding what love looks like, what family looks like, what they were allowed to become. And I realized, if I stayed on that floor, if I let this happen, if I let my father show them this was normal, I would lose them. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. Slowly, with every nerve in my body screaming, I placed a bloody hand on the tile and pushed myself upward. Dad stepped back, stunned. Emma's smirk faltered. Mom's eyes widened. Noah whispered, "Mom?" I met his gaze, breathing through the pain, and whispered back, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Mommy's not staying down anymore." And as I rose shaking, broken, bloody, I knew the line had been crossed, and I knew exactly what needed to happen next. For a moment, no one moved. I was still half crouched on the floor, one hand smeared in my own blood, the other gripping the leg of the dining table to steady myself. My ribs throbbed with every breath, sharp and hot like tiny knives twisting beneath my skin. My vision pulsed at the edges, but I stood, slowly, deliberately, like a woman rising from the dead. Dad's eyes widened not with concern, but with offense. Like, how dare I get up without his permission? Emma's smirk dissolved into something close to confusion. Mom clutched her chest. Noah pulled Lily behind him, watching me the way a child watches a hero rise from rubble. Dad recovered first. His voice dropped to a chilling growl. "You should have stayed down, Sophia." I wiped blood from my lip with the back of my hand. "Well," I said, breathing through the pain, "you've always underestimated me." Emma scoffed. "God, she's being dramatic." "No," Dad snapped at her. "She's being disrespectful." Then to me, "You think standing up makes you strong? You think it changes anything?" "It changes everything," I said. Dad stepped forward, raising his hand not to hit me yet, but clearly about to. Noah cried out, "Don't touch her." That was it. The last thread. I straightened my spine, ignoring the screaming in my ribs, and looked Dad dead in the eyes. "Try it," I said quietly. My voice didn't crack, didn't shake. It cut. He actually froze. Just for a second, long enough for Emma to gasp softly, and then I reached into my pocket. Dad lunged a half step, thinking I was grabbing something to defend myself. He had no idea. I pulled out my phone, clicked the screen, and turned it toward them. The live feed was already playing. A small camera perfectly hidden in the corner above the cabinets was capturing everything. Dad's voice, his kicks, my screams, Noah's terror, Lily's sobs, Emma's mocking laughter. All of it. Perfectly clear, perfectly recorded. Dad's face, drained. What is that? He demanded. A camera, I said calmly. You can't record people without one-party consent, I cut in. And lucky me, I'm the party. Emma's jaw dropped. Are you insane? No, I said. I'm done. Mom took a shaky step forward. Sophia, honey, let's talk. No, I said again. This time, colder, firmer, stronger. Dad pointed at the phone. His hand shook not with rage this time, but with the first flicker of fear I'd ever seen in him. Turn that off. No. You have no idea what you're doing. Oh, I whispered. Trust me. I know exactly what I'm doing. Also, I tapped the screen. A soft ding confirmed the upload was complete. Dad, I said. This entire video is already backed up. Cloud storage. Off-site secure server. And my attorney will have a copy within the hour. Emma stepped forward, panicked. You can't, Sophia. This is family business. I laughed, a short, sharp, humorless sound. Family? You mean the people who watched while he kicked me? The ones who said I deserved it? The ones who made my kids cry? Mom swallowed hard. Sophia, please. Your father didn't mean. He meant every second, I snapped. And so did you. Dad clenched his teeth. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I finally stopped making them. His voice cracked with rage. If you press charges, you'll destroy this family. I stepped closer, meeting him toe-to-toe, breath to breath, dominance versus defiance. The family was destroyed the moment you decided my fear mattered more than my children's safety. He flinched. Then, I pointed at the door. Get out. Mom blinked. What? All of you. Out of my house. Now. Emma shook her head. You're overreacting. You always overreact. Emma, I said, turning to her with a coldness I didn't know I possessed. If you take one more step toward me, I swear I will add you to the police report as a willing accomplice. She froze. Dad started. You can't just. I raised my phone. Wanna bet? Silence. One by one, they stepped backward. Dad first. Then Mom. Then Emma. No one said another word. When the door finally shut behind them, and their steps faded down the walkway, I locked the deadbolt and the chain and pressed my forehead to the door as the weight of everything crashed into me. Then I heard it. Mom? I turned. Noah and Lily ran into my arms, clinging to me with a desperation that broke my heart in ways the kicks never could. It's okay, I whispered, holding them tight despite the pain in my ribs. I'm here. I'm okay, and no one will ever hurt us again. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. The drive to the hospital was a blur of pain and panic. I could barely breathe. Every inhale stabbed my ribs like shards of glass. Noah sat beside me in the back seat, clutching my hand with both of his tiny ones. Lily was strapped in her booster seat, cheeks stained with tears, hiccuping softly. I'm okay, I kept whispering. But I wasn't, and they knew it. When the automatic doors opened, the fluorescent lights felt like a punch. A nurse saw the blood dried on my shirt and ran toward us. Oh my God, what happened? I opened my mouth, but the words stuck in my throat. Noah answered for me, voice cracking. Grandpa hurt her. The nurse's expression hardened instantly. Within minutes, I was lying on a narrow hospital bed, an ice pack pressed to my ribs, a pulse oximeter clipped to my finger. A doctor. Myers, a woman in her 50s, examined me with a calmness that made everything feel both safer and more terrifying. You have significant bruising, she said. Possible rib fractures. We'll take x-rays. She paused. Sophia. Who did this? I stared up at the ceiling. My father. No flicker of surprise passed across her face. She had seen this before too many times. It doesn't matter who hits you, she said quietly. The damage is the same. And the resources are the same. Her words pierced me deeper than the pain in my ribs. Noah was curled in a chair beside the bed. Lily was asleep in his lap. The sight of them like that protecting each other, because no one had protected me, made something inside me twist. The door burst open. Ethan. He stopped dead when he saw my face swollen, bruised, streaked with blood. His breath caught like someone had punched him. Who? He said, voice low, steady but shaking at the edges. Sophia. Who did this? My father, I whispered. For a moment, something terrifying flickered behind his eyes, something primal, murderous. I'm going to kill him, he said, turning toward the door. No! I grabbed his wrist. Pain shot up my arm, but I didn't let go. Ethan, don't. Please. He put his hands on you, he growled. On the mother of my kids. On. And that's exactly why we're doing this the right way. I squeezed his hand. No more violence. No more chaos. I want him to face real consequences. Legal consequences. He swallowed hard and nodded, jaw tight. What do you need from me? I exhaled shakily. I need my phone. Ethan placed it gently in my hand, and I dialed the number I had saved weeks ago under a name only I recognized, Karen H. Consultation only. When she answered on the second ring, her voice was smooth, controlled, direct. This is attorney Karen Holden. It's Sophia, I said, my voice trembling. I need help, now. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. Every kick, every scream, every drop of blood. The video. The children, witnessing everything. Karen didn't interrupt. Not once. When I finished, she inhaled slowly. Sophia, this is enough for a criminal case, a restraining order, and a civil suit. All three. You have strong evidence. My heart pounded. We start tonight, she continued. You'll send the footage to my secure drive. First thing tomorrow morning, I file for an emergency protective order. Then we press charges for felony assault. Your father is going to be arrested. The words hit me like a warm shock. He's going to be arrested. For the first time since I hit the floor of my dining room, I felt something other than pain. I felt power. Sophia? Karen asked. You still with me? Yes, I breathed. I'm ready. Good, she said. Because this is the moment everything changes. For you, for your kids, and for him. I looked at Noah sleeping beside Lily. My bruised ribs burned. My head throbbed. But underneath all of that was fire. Thank you, I whispered. No, she replied. Don't thank me. Just don't back down. The line clicked off. Ethan sat beside me, brushing a strand of hair from my face. What happens now? He asked softly. I stared straight ahead. Now, I said. I stop surviving. I turned to him, voice steady, and I start fighting back. The next morning began with the kind of pain that makes breathing feel like punishment. Every rib protested. My face throbbed. Even my skin felt bruised, but none of it mattered, because today was the day things started to change. Ethan had taken the kids home to rest. I remained in a quiet examination room, waiting for the officer Karen said would arrive to take my report. When the door opened, a woman in a Navy uniform stepped inside Officer Jenna Morales. Calm, composed, eyes sharp but kind. She took one look at me and silently exhaled through her nose. The kind of breath people make when they're trying not to show anger. Miss Collins? She asked. Yes, I said, straightening despite the pain. I'm here to take your statement and collect the video evidence your attorney mentioned. I nodded, handing her my phone with shaking fingers. As she watched the footage, her jaw locked. When the first kick landed, her eyebrows knit so tightly they almost touched. When Dad yanked my hair. When he shoved Noah. When Lily screamed. Her nostrils flared. A vein pulsed in her temple. She paused the video halfway through. Where's he now? She asked, voice low. At home, I whispered. She pressed play again. This time she didn't pause it until the very end. She shut off the screen. Closed her eyes. Exhaled through clenched teeth. Sophia, she said, your father will be arrested today. A tremor shot through my chest, not fear, not relief. Something in between, something new. Before I could respond, her radio crackled. She stepped into the hallway to answer. When she returned, her expression had shifted into pure authority. I'll file my report immediately. The DA will receive this within the hour. I swallowed hard. This is really happening, isn't it? It needs to happen, she said. Not just for you, but for your kids. My throat tightened. Thank you. Officer Morales gave a grim nod. Women like you don't need thanks. You need justice. And you're going to get it. 2 hours later, as I lay half asleep against the pillows, a familiar vibration rattled my phone. Mom. Then Dad. Then Emma. Then my uncle. Then numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemail after voicemail. Text after text. A flood of guilt, manipulation, rage. I played one. Mom's voice trembled with theatrical misery. Sophia, how could you do this? Your father is devastated. We're family. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Delete. Emma's message came next, tight and angry. Are you insane? You called the cops on Dad? On Dad? He's freaking out. Answer me. Fix this. Delete. Then my father's voice, cold, controlled, despite everything. You think you can ruin me? You have no idea who you're fighting. You better drop this before it goes too far. I smiled. Even with bruises on my face, I smiled. Too far? He had no idea how far I was willing to go. Delete. Finally, a call from an unknown number. I answered. Hello? Miss Collins, a man said. This is Officer Harland from the County Sheriff's Office. I'm calling to inform you that we have taken Gerald Collins into custody for felony assault. The words hit me like a wave, cold, sharp, life-altering. Did he say anything? I asked. There was a slight pause. He referred to you as dramatic and provocative. But we're holding him for booking now. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. Thank you. Your attorney will receive the full report today. When the call ended, I let my head fall back. He was in custody, actually in custody. For the first time in my life, Dad was facing consequences, not decided by him, not by Mom, not by Emma, but by someone he couldn't threaten into submission. Later that afternoon, Ethan drove me home. As we pulled into the driveway, he reached over and touched my hand. How do you feel? He asked softly. I stared at the house, my house where the violence had happened. The air still felt heavy. But for the first time, it wasn't suffocating me. I swallowed. Awake. Ethan squeezed my hand gently. And ready? I nodded. More than ever. Because I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. The arrest was just the first crack in an empire built on silence, fear, and control. Now it was time to make the whole thing collapse. The backlash didn't take long. It started the same afternoon Dad was arrested. My phone buzzed nonstop, texts, calls, voicemails, messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Ethan finally put my phone on silent, but even then, the screen lit up every few seconds like a warning beacon. The first message was from my cousin Marissa, someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year. Sophia, I heard you had your dad arrested. What is wrong with you? He could have a heart attack in jail. Answer me now. Delete. Then came my aunt. Sweetheart, men lose their temper sometimes. That doesn't mean you put them in prison. Think of your mother. She's devastated. Delete. Then another distant cousin. Your dad supported you your whole life. You're going to destroy this family over one argument? Shame on you. Delete. It was like someone had set off a flare in the family tree, and every relative with a cell phone suddenly felt entitled to rescue the family name by attacking me. I was barely out of the car when my mother showed up at my house. Ethan stepped outside first, blocking her. Ethan, Mom said, hands trembling. Please, I need to talk to my daughter. He didn't move. Not unless Sophia says so. I stepped out onto the porch, ribs aching, but refusing to stay seated while the woman who watched me get beaten stood there, pretending to be a victim. Mom's face twisted the instant she saw me. Sophia, how could you? She whispered, like I was the one who'd done something unspeakable. I folded my arms. Mom, I'm not doing this. You got your father arrested? Arrested? She cried. Do you know what people are saying? Our church group is. I cut her off. I don't care what your church group thinks. She blinked like I'd slapped her. You don't mean that. I do, I said. I care about Noah and Lily, and what they saw, and what he did. He didn't mean to hurt you, she snapped. He was disciplining you, and you provoked him. I stared at her. You watched him kick me while I was on the floor. Mom swallowed hard. You know how he gets when he's stressed. I almost laughed. Almost. Mom, I said, voice dropping to steel. If you don't leave, I'll add your name to the restraining order request. Her lips parted in shock. You wouldn't. Try me. For the first time in my life, my mother stepped back from me. Ethan closed the door gently behind us. 2 days later, Karen called. Brace yourself, she warned. Your family is escalating. How? I asked. They're contacting the DA's office, claiming you have a history of emotional instability. I blinked. Excuse me? That's not all. Your father's business partner, Leonard Shaw, contacted your workplace. He told your supervisor the assault charges were fabricated. And the fear of cinched color. And the rebead was nodded. A slow, cold fury crawled up my spine. My job? I whispered. They're going after my job now? I told you this would happen, Karen said, not unkindly. When abusers lose control, they try to regain it by destroying your reputation. Just then, as if God himself were proving her point, my phone buzzed with a message from Emma. You think you're so righteous? Dad's lawyer said he's getting out soon. You better fix this before the whole town finds out what a liar you are. I exhaled slowly. She wants a response, I told Karen. Don't give her one, Karen said. Silence is power. Then came the next blow. A knock on the door. I opened it to find Angela, a distant cousin who had always acted like Mom's loyal foot soldier, standing there with a smug expression. Hi, Sophia, she said sweetly. Thought I'd check on you. You know, since you're destroying your parents. Ethan appeared behind me instantly. This isn't a good time. Angela ignored him. You know your father has high blood pressure, right? Court stress could be dangerous. Imagine if something happened to him. You'd feel responsible forever. My voice came out quiet but lethal. Angela, move your car from my driveway. And stay off my property, she scoffed. Or what? Or the restraining order includes you too. She froze. This isn't over, she hissed. Everyone knows what you're doing. People are talking. Good, I said. Let them talk. When I closed the door, my hands were shaking not from fear, but from the realization that I wasn't afraid anymore. 3 days later, the DA's office called me in. The prosecutor assigned to the case, Assistant District Attorney Dana Porter, reviewed the evidence in front of me every minute of the video, the medical reports, the witness statements from Officer Morales. When she looked up, her eyes were flat steel. Sophia, this isn't a simple domestic dispute, she said. This is felony assault and child endangerment. We're pursuing maximum charges. Something inside me lifted, like a weight I'd carried since childhood had finally cracked. Your father has a court hearing tomorrow morning, Ada Porter continued. You will not need to testify yet, but be prepared. The defense will try to paint you as unstable, emotional, ungrateful. They will blame everything on you. I nodded. I know. Are you ready for that? I took a long breath. Yes, I said. Because for the first time, I finally know I'm right. That night, as I tucked Noah and Lily into bed, Lily asked, Mommy, is Grandpa going to hurt you again? I brushed her hair back gently. No, baby, I whispered. He's not allowed to come near us anymore. Because of the police? Because Mommy finally said enough. Noah reached for my hand. I'm proud of you, Mom. Those words. Those tiny, powerful words. They were worth more than any apology my family could ever offer. And as I kissed my kids goodnight, I realized something. My father's arrest wasn't the end of a nightmare. It was the beginning of our freedom. The courthouse smelled like old paper, cold marble, and fear. Not my fear. Theirs. Dad sat at the defense table in a wrinkled suit, wrists still slightly marked from the handcuffs they'd removed. Mom sat behind him, clutching a tissue, shaking her head dramatically whenever someone looked her way. Emma sat stiff beside her, arms crossed, glaring at me as if I'd personally murdered her dreams. I walked in with my attorney, Karen Holden, and ADA Porter. My ribs had finally stopped aching. My bruises had faded to a soft yellow, but the fire in my chest, that was still burning. Dad looked at me, expecting the old Sophia, the girl who used to shrink under his stare, apologize, rationalize, back down. But I didn't flinch. His eyes flickered, unsure for the first time in my entire life. Good. He should be unsure. He should be terrified. The hearing lasted less than an hour. Ada Porter presented the evidence with surgical precision. The video, the audio, Officer Morales's report, the medical records. The fact that Noah and Lily had witnessed everything. Dad's lawyer tried to argue discipline, stress, a misunderstanding. But nothing, not his excuses, not my mother's trembling hands, not Emma's fake tears could erase the image of a grown man kicking his daughter in front of 2 children. When Porter played the footage in the courtroom, there was a moment of visceral shift where everyone watching collectively recoiled. You could feel the disgust settling over the room like thick smoke. Noah's tiny voice screaming, "Stop!" Lily's terrified sobs. Dad's voice booming. You're nothing. No lawyer alive could talk their way out of that. When the video ended, you could have heard a pin drop. The judge looked at my father with the kind of cold, heavy disappointment he deserved. Mr. Collins, the judge said, voice steady, this is not discipline. This is not a moment of lost temper. What I see is violence, severe, intentional, and dangerous. And you did it in front of children. Dad's jaw twitched. He was losing. He knew it. The judge continued, you are hereby sentenced to 18 months in state custody, with eligibility for parole after 12 months with good behavior. Additionally, a permanent restraining order will be granted on behalf of Sophia Collins and her children. Mom cried softly. Emma slammed her purse onto the bench. Dad stared at the floor. Me? I just breathed. And for the first time in years, it didn't hurt. When the hearing ended, Mom stood and rushed toward me. Sophia, please, you don't understand. I stepped back. No, I said. You don't understand. And you never tried to. Emma pushed forward, eyes red with fury. You think you've won? She spat. You're tearing this family apart. Dad's business is collapsing because of you. We're drowning in legal fees. That's not my fault, I said calmly. That's the cost of the choices he made. You could have forgiven him. No, I said, voice like ice. What I couldn't do was let my children think this was normal. Emma opened her mouth, but Karen stepped in. This conversation is over. They're in violation if they continue speaking to her. Mom froze. Emma cursed under her breath. And I walked out of that courtroom without looking back. Life didn't magically fix itself after that, but it did begin to open. The settlement from the civil case came 30 days later. $75,000, enough to pay off our remaining mortgage, cover all medical bills and therapy, start savings accounts for Noah and Lily, and finally allow me to enroll in the college program I dropped years ago because my father demanded I work to help the family. And it is Provix. The day I made that first tuition payment, my hands shook, not from fear, from pride. Ethan, always steady, always in my corner, held me close and whispered, I'm proud of you. But the moment that changed everything wasn't mine. It was Lily's. One night, as I tucked her in, she looked up at me with sleepy eyes and whispered, Mommy, I'm glad Grandpa can't yell at you anymore. I kissed her forehead. Me too, baby. And I'm glad you got back up. The breath I took felt like the first clean breath of my life. Months passed. The house grew quieter, lighter. My kids laughed more. Ethan smiled more. And I slept without waking from the phantom sensation of a kick. My father served his sentence. My mother lost her social standing. Emma's bitterness devoured her from the inside. The throne of control they'd built for decades collapsed, brick by poisoned brick. And I stood in the sunlight of the life they said I would never have. Once, I thought being the difficult daughter was an insult. Something to fear. Something to fix. Now, I wear it like armor. Because if protecting my children, choosing myself, and burning down a legacy of generational violence makes me the villain in their story, then I'll gladly take the role. Better a villain in their narrative than a victim in mine.